Hey, good evening, guys. Welcome. Thanks for showing up to celebrate DNA Day. So what started off literally as a joke turned into over 500 people registering saying they want to know more. So we'll be sending this replay for anyone that joins late or, isn't available tonight. We'll send it out to everybody. But for those of you that are here live, thank you. It's good to be with you this evening. And I'm going to do what I promised, which is I'm going to walk you through the story of how I felt and how I now feel. And simply, the things I did and what I learned along the way to get there, and how something that seemed overly complex and maybe out of my control actually was very easy once I understood. And I'll take you through the entire journey from a few years ago until today. So I recognize some names here already. So thanks, guys, for coming here. And again, don't worry if you need to leave, whatever, there's a replay available. I know there was like 500 people plus, I said, like, that registered, so we'll make sure that everybody gets it. So firstly, I mean, some of you know me, some of you don't. Just to go back to day one, when was that epiphany? Well, I was sick. I had multiple conditions. Again, some of you have heard the story before. Eczema was really bad. So eczema to the point where my left eye was actually kind of sealed shut. So the inflammation was so bad that I couldn't open it. And that went on for a good month or so at the peak, but it was on and off for a few years. I had psoriasis to the point where if I were to clasp my hands like this, my knuckles here would actually bleed. It was just so dry and raw that I would have to be constantly thinking about, not bending my fingers to not bleed in public. I had gut issues. So the gut was horrible, and which I found out was a root of a lot. And we'll get into how I was able to resolve that and why it was a root of so much. And beyond that, probably the worst part was the migraines, because it just debilitates you. You can still get by with all these other things going on, but you just can't do anything because the pain is so bad, literally to the point where I would be in the office, and I would have to ask my business partner to drive me home because I couldn't function. And then we'd stop and I would vomit outside the car because the pain was so intense. The only thing I could do was either vomit or sleep, and that would relieve it temporarily. And sometimes I'd wake up and then it would start again. So all of that was going on, and a little bit of depression sprinkled on it just to add some flavor. And there was days where I just didn't want to get out of bed and go to work. So the challenge for me was not understanding functional health, not understanding what it means to be able to control and be your own quarterback when it comes to health. I had multiple doctors. I'm in Canada. Some of you are, some of you aren't. And the model here is that the government pays for your healthcare. Everything is covered, and you don't have a lot of options because of that. So it's beautiful in terms of acute care. Break your arm, you're taken care of. Terminal cancer, you're taken care of. Trying to understand why your migraines can't go away. You can't go beyond the doctor visit and the prescription. There's really no other option. And so when I would ask the question, why? Fair question. I've been healthy for 38 years up until that point, never really had health be on my radar, which is true for most people until they get sick. Why all of a sudden all this stuff at the same time? And I couldn't get the answer. So in fact, I got this feedback, and it was my first go around in this healthcare industry, of understanding that that's not what we do here. We don't ask why. We describe it, diagnose it, and we prescribe it. So describe and prescribe. Here's what it's called. Here's what you have to take. We're going to manage it and watch it. And it's either going to get a little bit worse or a little bit better. And all we're going to do is tweak the dials of what we recommend that you take. So higher dose, lower dose, right? And so there was this acute response of taking some steroid creams and, my eyelid opening up finally, but then it would pop up on my arm, and then getting rid of it on my arm, and then it would pop up on my belly. And so I just thought, I have eczema, it's going to come everywhere, and I'll just need more cream, and eventually bathing in cream, and same thing with the migraines. I didn't know what the trigger was. So I went down that rabbit hole myself, and I started to discover integrative and functional medicine, and this is, by the way, the story for, if you talk to most functional medicine practitioners, they typically don't go out of high school saying, my career choice is functional medicine. It's usually 10 years of medicine and getting so sick of what they're doing that they decide there's another way and they go another direction. Or it's like, I'm a chiropractor and I can see that customers keep coming to me disappointed by their doctors, hoping that I can do something for them. So I learn functional medicine. Or I work with athletes, and what I was taught in school just isn't enough. There's more I need to know. I need to learn how to heal their gut. Why do they have pains and why can't they recover? There must be more to this. So that's typically why people get into root cause medicine, is because whatever's available to them doesn't solve it. That's what happened to me. So I found the root through my genome. So I was led by a gentleman named Bryce Wiles, who's part of our company. He's a media personality here in Canada that has brilliance when it comes to what to recommend. So here's what's broken, how do you fix it? Brilliant guy in terms of supplementation, herbs, botanicals, all that stuff. And so he helped me with the acute response. And then I started to ask him why, because his solution seemed to be solving the root, not there's no more cream on the skin. It's more like, hey, this supplement will support something. So, and it was in that I discovered my genome. And I learned two things: that it was messed up. There were certain genes in my instruction manual that were not functioning the way they were. And the second thing I learned was that the reporting itself, genetics, was messed up. That there was this beautiful tool that solved my problems, but it was very hard to use. And so I went on this journey of getting healed and then starting to heal my mother, my friends, people around me, business partners, etc., their families. And it turned into this thing that I was doing that blossomed into this company. So how did I do it? Let's get into the nitty-gritty. What did I actually do? Firstly, I understood that when you're dealing with the root cause, you cannot solve a problem. You have to, or a symptom, I should say. You have to solve a system, and they are all interconnected. So you can't say that I have a headache, I'm going to solve my head. You have to say, I have a headache, I also have to deal with my gut, and I also have to deal with my sleep, and I also have to deal with my hormones. Because if you just fix one and the other thing, that other wheel is still not dialed as it should ideally be, the problem could be triggered somewhere else. Ultimately, all these things are inflammation, right? So there's inflammation that triggers problems. What's causing the inflammation? That's truly the solution. That's the root. And so first step was me learning that these systems in our body are all interconnected, and you have to solve things at the system level. What are the systems? Your hormones, your neurochemicals of your brain, your detox and anti-inflammatory pathways. You can look at innate hardware. So for example, quality of endothelium, ApoE, and the quality of your brain's ability to deal with amyloid plaque and cholesterol buildup. So there's the innate clinical stuff too. So you start to understand these systems and how they interconnect and intersync, and you realize that these symptomatic problems are the very last step. This is, for 10 years, I've had a system failure, and I've been either eating the wrong foods or exposed to the wrong environment, or breathing in the wrong pesticides in my lawn, and I keep triggering the system failure, which eventually my mitochondria, my cells cannot take the load anymore. I cross this threshold and I get sick. So the sickness is the very last warning sign. There's aches and pains, there's brain fog, there may be some skin irritation, there's these minor things that pop up and we ignore them, or we treat them at the symptom level, but the system failure is still happening. We then start to see bigger problems, like it went from brain fog to migraine, and it went from migraine to stomach migraine and vomiting, and it went from vomiting to I can't remember my friends' names anymore. So it just progresses and progresses because the inflammation gets worse and worse and worse. So again, system first, symptoms resolve themselves. So that's one big thing I learned. The second thing I learned is that now that you've identified what these systems are, you have to find the red flag. So genetics or solving medicine at the root cause isn't about this problem, for example, headache, is tied to this genetic pathway. It's more like, here's the red flag in your genome, and I'm not concerned about what your problem is right now. All I'm looking for are the genes that don't function properly, right? So step one is we understood the systems and how the body works so that we can apply this knowledge. Step two is, here's the genes that don't work, or maybe work a little too well, which can also be a problem. For example, in your hormones, you might be making too much of something because you have a highly efficient gene, right? So it's not at a homeostatic or middle ground that it should be. too fast, too slow. That thing you can then focus on and reinterpret for how does it solve this problem? I'm not looking for a migraine gene. I'm not looking for a breast cancer gene. I'm not looking for a hair loss gene, right? I wish I did a long time ago, but I didn't anyways. Now, what you're looking for is, here's the red flags. How do I interpret this for that problem? And we're going to get into that. I'm going to give you examples. So that's step 2 of 3. So understanding the systems, how does my body really work? Not understanding the symptoms, understanding the systems, and then forgetting about the symptoms for a while. Looking for the red flags, forgetting about the symptoms still. Step 3 is in understanding, now that I know the systems and how the body works, so I can interpret things properly. And second, I now know what my red flags are, these gaps and holes in my genome. I now know what the epigenetic habits should be and shouldn't be. I cannot, these are the choices. Lifestyle medicine, if you want to call it that, everything we've talked about up until now was based on this. Number 3, the choices you have made. So every choice you make is either a step towards health or a step away from health. Every time you breathe, what's in that air, every time you eat, what's in that food, every time you talk to someone and how toxic that relationship is, it's a step towards or away from health. So now that you've understood how the body works with the systems, now you've understand the red flags, you can now start to identify what those epigenetic environment, nutrition, and lifestyle choices are that are appropriate for this system with this genome, right? And you can start to park some of those information. And the fourth and final thing is understanding then what the changes or solutions should be. So we've identified, here's all the habits. So for example, a system may be, let's look at hormones, right? Hormone system. And the genome may say that I make too much DHT, of a form of testosterone. So now I've understood, I'm looking at this system and I know what this leads to: body type, libido, hair, skin, muscle. I now know that this is the red flag. It's that I make too much DHT. So now I know to turn this on or off, I have to identify what the right epigenetic choices are that do this. The last step, once I've understood all this stuff, is the solutions that are out there. And this is where you spend the most time, the exploration and changing your habits. So the habits, and I'm going high level, and I'm going to actually get into like examples now. Just I wanted you to understand the thinking, right? Now that you've understood all this, you have to now go out there and do something. Where this is where most people end in any health journey or any improvement learning type journey. It's you get all the information, you learn and listen to the expert, you gather it all, you buy the book, but you never read it. You don't, the chart that's in the book that says, please fill this out, you never fill it out. The person that gave you this amazing result and report with all these recommendations, you don't actually drive to the health food store and buy them. This is where most of the work is done. And it's done incrementally. It's done with, let me do the easiest, most sort of elementary thing first, and I'll build up to the other things that are bigger, badder, bolder, and more difficult to do later. I don't have to do it all on day one. And that's the journey people kind of go through. If you want to experience true identity change at the root cause level, experiencing permanent health change, right? Which is what I experienced. So a new version of myself. I'm a different person. I haven't been sick in years. I don't even catch the common cold anymore, to be honest. When I do, I know exactly what to take, what echinacea spray, what supplements to take that my body needs to fight that virus so I don't actually get sick. I feel the tingle in my throat and it ends there. It's gone within hours. So now the one thing I would say, sort of a blanket statement, is that when it comes to all of what you hear about, call it biological age reversal, biohacking, how to be the best version of yourself, you're often looking at like crazy expensive equipment. There's this guy right now that's all over the place. I think his name is Brian Johnson, who spent $2 million reversing his age. There's plenty of tools, mitochondrial stimulation, all this stuff. And when you think about reversing biological age, and you think about, which was the topic today, and you think about becoming the optimal version of yourself, you usually think about those types of things, right? You usually think about those types of solutions. And once I go through these examples, I would argue those are the last thing, and those are optimizing. That's not where you start. If you'd start where what I said, which is here's your body, here's how it works, I understand the systems, here's my red flags, here's my right habits, here's the solutions I should pursue and actually buy and put and install in a way where I'm actually going to do it, like set an alarm on my phone to shut my laptop off, set an alarm on my phone to make sure I go on a walk, like actually start to do the things and build the habits. If you do this, which is all I did, by the way, for until 2 years ago, where I started to then explore biohacking equipment, right? So from the first 3 years of this journey, I did nothing but these 4 areas. I did not do cold plunges, and I did not use mitochondrial stimulation beds, and I did not, take frequency machines to alter the cellular frequency and quantum medicine. That all came later. And this is the one major sort of gap between who succeeds and who fails, is the people that you see online talking about this didn't start there, right? Once you get to a certain plateau or level of call it knowledge, then you optimize and add things. You don't start as a biohacker, right? And this is very important, because often when you attend something like this, like, hey, reverse your biological age, that's what you expect to hear. Here's this amazing pill you can take and your age is going to reverse, right? Here's this equipment you should buy and your age is going to reverse. Those are the last things you do. And now, why is that true? Because if the terrain isn't prepared, it's not going to benefit you. We are sick, we're inflamed, we have fibrosis, we have cellular health issues. You have to get yourself to a homeostatic level first, where you're healthy. Then you start biohacking. Health first. Health means how I feel. I don't have the chronic conditions anymore. I feel good mentally. I feel good physically. I can go to the gym and not get exhausted. I sleep properly, all these things. So that the basic foundational stuff has to be done first. Make the terrain optimal so that it's ready to receive stem cell therapy and peptides and mitochondrial stimulation. If you're still having a crazy insulin response because you eat garbage in front of Netflix at night, it's not going to help you to lie on a mitochondrial bed. You're just, in one door, out the other, right? There's a net result of 0. So you actually want that thing to push the dial for improvement. So now I'm going to walk you through understanding that that's how we think. I'm going to now walk you through what I actually did. So the first thing I did, I started with my brain, because what I understood from talking to all these practitioners, etc., is that if I don't first understand how I think, and if the people that I'm working with don't understand how I think, step number 4, will I actually do anything? Right? What are my motivations? What are the things that make me feel successful? So first thing I did was mapped out my mind map, the neurochemicals of my brain, and what drives my personality. And I'm not, call it average. It's very unique. My dopamine pathway is extremely unique. I've been through hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of reviews with people. Very rarely seen someone that looks like me. And when I do, they usually have a whole whack of problems, because it's very hard to cope with this world, with this brain. So I learned that this was a big part of what was going on, is that I would take on too much. When it comes to my dopamine response, I desired more risk. I desired more pain, let's call it. I didn't get satisfied unless I was pushing myself. We reached the target. Okay, give me another target, right? I would be doing well in one thing. Give me another thing and another thing, and constantly overloading my hormone system and cortisol spiking through the roof and constantly making me sick. I also couldn't take people's advice because it was never good enough. So when I was working with a practitioner, he would be saying something like, wow, this is amazing. And halfway through him saying it, I already thought I knew more than him, because of my reward-seeking behavior and wanting to know more and wanting to be the best at it. And so I couldn't ever do anything because I was always seeking more, never present. Now that's my problem. That's not necessarily anybody else's problem. There's multiple things that people could feel that prevent them from actually being present or being successful in the change they need to make, right? The other big red flag for me was my serotonin response. So serotonin is this mood regulating chemical that allows you to experience the world as it should be. When there's a sound, a smell, a funny joke, are you responding as appropriate for the stimulus that came in, or are you over or under reacting? And because my serotonin was dysregulated, it was very hard for my brain to respond appropriately. I was always over or under reacting because my serotonin couldn't prioritize the stimulus around me. So I gave attention to everything, and everything got a reaction from me, and everything caused a distraction to me, and everything caused irritability to me, and everything caused me to appear to be ADHD to the people around me. When it wasn't actually ADHD, attention deficit, it was actually hyper attention. I gave everything attention that didn't deserve attention. So these two things, there's more that I can speak to in terms of the brain and what I learned, but these two things allow me to understand that just even the awareness of, oh, now I understand. Now I understand why I can't work with this person. And now I understand how to work with this person. Now I understand why I failed when I was given clear instructions. I just didn't do it. And now I understand I need to slow down, get things done before I move on to the next thing. So awareness of perception allows you to be in the right context. Context is key, because this same thing that was a burden for me in terms of achieving optimal health was amazing for me in terms of being an entrepreneur, right? In terms of wanting risk and wanting reward and wanting to pursue things and jumping on the next opportunity and being able to move quick and being able to take on the load of stress and not crash and burn and be the last man standing and support the team with whatever the problem was, right? So it was a superpower in this context. It was an incredible burden in this other context. And so now knowing when to turn it on and off, we'll start to again with awareness of what are you even turning on and off, and the ability to sort of have those dials to turn, right? So that was the first one. Now, when I resolved what was going on in my brain, I unintentionally solved two other problems. Because remember the very first thing I said, that all the systems are interconnected, right? When you truly want to heal, you don't do it by solving a problem. You solve the system, and then all the symptoms go away. A system is a hub, and the symptoms are spokes, right? And they're often connected to multiple hubs. So my serotonin is off. I had crazy gut issues, as I said. That was one of my 5 problems. I learned that when it comes to detox of the gut, there's a gene called GSTM1. I didn't even have it. I was missing it, completely missing. Didn't have it in my, so there's a page of my human instruction manual missing, my genetic code, right? So when it came to the foods I was eating, working downtown in Toronto in an office and going for lunches with clients and partners and suppliers every day, you know, eating seed oils and breads and things that should not have gone into my gut. Yes, they're bad for everyone, but they were even worse for me because I didn't have a first line of defense. I didn't have the ability to block them from entering my bloodstream and causing head to toe inflammation. What else was happening is my gut was in a dysbiotic state, right? So constant state of toxins chipping away at the gut wall, causing dysbiosis and causing a leaky gut. And guess what? Your serotonin is made in your gut. So not only my serotonin dysregulated, and this is why it's very important to understand the systems are interconnected, my gut was also off, right? And I wasn't paying attention to what my gut needed from me. In fact, I was doing the opposite and burdening it with what it couldn't handle. And so the thing that I needed to do to solve my serotonin was making it exponentially worse, because the factory that made it was being burdened with garbage food, right? So that then also affected my sleep. So these systems again are interconnected. And the second thing that I was going to say was resolved was my sleep, right? So how did that get resolved? When it comes to I can't sleep at night, what do? We get melatonin, right? We meditate, we breathe, we do things to fall asleep. That's typically what we're striving for. What we don't look at is this other problem of I can't stay asleep. I fall asleep, no problem. But somewhere around 3, 4 a.m., something happens and it's nowhere near the same quality, right? So this was my problem. I didn't have a problem falling asleep. I didn't sleep, but I did think the solutions were the standard solutions. Buy some melatonin, you know, take some magnesium, let's relax the body, even some adaptogen type stuff, like let's adjust brainwaves so that they're in the right state. But none of those were my problem. My problem was my serotonin was dysregulated. So it not only are the systems interconnected, but the genes or the biological processes, they affect different systems. So systems are interconnected, they overlap, gut and brain overlap, and the biological processes also affect multiple systems. So you can't look at your genome or any system as isolated and standalone. They all work together, right? So same thing here. The same serotonin, which is designed to manage your mood and designed purposely to allow your brain to prioritize stimulus and give energy to whatever deserves energy and ignore whatever is meant to be ignored. It also affects your sleep, not by design, but your serotonin is made in the second half of sleep, right? So your gut during that time is preparing for the next day and starts to make everything. The first half of your sleep is more recovery. Okay, let's get rid of the toxins and clear everything, and the lymphatic drainage of the brain and lymphatic drainage of the body. That all happens in the first half. Second half is now preparation. Let's make all the stuff I need for tomorrow, including your serotonin. If your gut's off, you're first of all not making it efficiently, which was my case. And if your serotonin regulation is also off, your ability to actually bind and use it properly, then you're also not going to, of the little that you're making with your bad gut, you're also not going to be able to use it properly. So again, what did I say that led to during the day when I was walking around was irritability, distractibility, inability to prioritize stimulus, which means that even in my sleep, during that time where the serotonin was being made, where eventually at some point you're supposed to wake up in that second half. And what's supposed to trigger the wake up is sunlight. That's the natural trigger. Wake up, sun is up, right? Your brain not being able to prioritize stimulus doesn't know when to wake up. So it's responding to everything. It got one temperature hotter. It got one temperature cooler, 1 degree, sorry, I should say. Somebody pulled on a blanket. Somebody dropped something down the street and you heard a bang sound. Like all of these things that the person sleeping right next to you didn't notice because their serotonin isn't dysregulated and their gut maybe is a little healthier, disrupts your sleep constantly. And that was actually my problem. So as a byproduct of me trying to fix my mood issue and fixing my gut, I started sleeping better. And guess what happens when you sleep better? Everything gets better, right? This goes back to the thing I was saying earlier. And I'm going to tell you more, but you got to look at it this way: system failures, what gene is broken, what are the right epigenetic choices for that, and then what solutions do I actually need to curate? Whether it's buying something, turning something on, turning something off, moving something. What is the actual behavior that I'm actually implementing to solve this epigenetic thing that I've identified, right? So when you start to do these things, you can see that all I was doing were foundational. I wasn't buying equipment. I wasn't spending $100,000 to go see some doctor in Silicon Valley. I wasn't, scanning myself in a head to toe X-ray of some sort that you see in Star Trek. I was literally fixing my sleep and my gut and my brain. And so much got resolved. What got resolved? My eczema went away. Because by fixing my gut, knowing the inputs that I couldn't handle, right? And also supplementing. So I took some NAC, N-acetylcysteine. I took some ALA, alpha lipoic acid. I took some selenium, some milk thistle. These are all precursors to glutathione, so they kind of just get to work and do their job. And so while I was stopping the input, I was also increasing capacity, allowing my body to now do the job that it didn't innately do, because I added things into my body that would do it for me. And they weren't crazy expensive biohacking tools, supplements that you can buy anywhere, right? And so this started to resolve my gut, which resolved my serotonin, which resolved my brain, which also resolved my sleep unintentionally. And we realized we know how to fix sleep. So the second thing I fixed was sleep. And when sleep got better, hormones got better, right? Which is the third thing we're going to talk about. I then started to look at other areas. Well, now I feel better. I don't feel inflamed. This sleep thing is really fixing a lot. Like I feel like a pep in my step. And guess what? I don't have the depression anymore either, because I'm making enough serotonin to manage my mood. And by the way, by this time, I've also understood how I think. So I'm not overloading myself when it comes to work and feeling disappointed by the things that shouldn't disappoint me. I now understand who I am in this hierarchy of this business, right? And what I'm good at. So, there's a racehorse, there's the donkey that plows the field, there's a cow, like everyone has a different job. I now know who I am, what I'm supposed to do. So I'm not disappointed and frustrated, right? I'm actually thriving. So I fix that, fix that, fix that. And now all of a sudden I'm getting to this level where I feel good, right? These symptomatic things are going away. And I start to look at next steps. What could I do that aren't directly related? And I realized that I didn't look the way I used to look, right? I would still push my body. Everybody feels invincible and thinks they're 19 until they're 90, but I didn't look the way I used to look. And this happened when I actually saw a photograph at my mother's house of me when I was actually was 19. And I was like, was I ever that thin? I don't remember that ever. Like, how is that even possible? Because 19, you're almost fully formed as an adult, right? I was like, how is it possible that I look like that? And then I remember that I actually weighed 140 pounds. And at the time, I think I was in the 180s, somewhere mid 180s. I'm now 170. I said, okay, well, it's the same frame. Maybe my bones are a little bigger, but I should be able to look healthier also. And so I started to look at my hormones. This is exceedingly important when it comes to women. This is why it's even more important for women that this is the very next thing that's done, because this central hub of hormones triggers many, many female conditions that are treated as endometriosis, infertility, fibromyalgia, crazy rocky menopause, PMS, horrible menstrual cramps, all this stuff that women have to deal with is rooted in this one thing that is actually much easier to interpret and apply than we think. So I started to understand that I actually genetically do a pretty good job of making testosterone. I am wired for it, but I didn't look like it. But I also learned that I clear testosterone really rapidly. So although I make it in high volumes, it doesn't last very long, which leaves me in this use it or lose it bucket. So I started training. I started going to the gym. And I started weightlifting because I learned that the hormone, and we don't make the same recommendation to everybody, by the way, but I started to learn that my body was designed to push heavy things, right? My hormones, the genetics of my hormones clearly speak to this. So I started doing that. I started lifting heavy weights several times a week, and that changed a lot for me. My body started to age, anti-age on the outside. So whereas I had first dealt with the inflammation on the inside, I started now seeing it's not just about getting fit and about muscle. Yes, I wanted all that, but I truly mean my skin changed. There was a glow, that was not there before. In fact, one of our scientists used to tell me that I had this darkness about my face. Like I just looked like darkness was entering the room. That was a joke he used to make because I just looked so sick, right? That it went from that to a glow. And that started to happen when my hormones got balanced. But knowing how to balance my hormones started with, where is my innate baseline? Like, what am I designed for? What should I be doing? That allowed me to do a couple of things. It allowed me to know how to train to feel better, but it also allowed me to know how to supplement to block the toxic byproducts I was making. DHT, which did cause follicle death, which does cause prostate enlargement, which can cause inflammation. So there's another source of inflammation that I had to deal with that I was able to block by simply taking the right supplements that manage gene expression that are perfectly healthy. And guess what? If you block the conversion of the testosterone into DHT, you end up with more testosterone, which is where you want to be as a man. Now, for women, this becomes exceedingly important because in the estrogen metabolic pathway, before you have a menstrual cycle, you first convert into a metabolite. They're called hydroxyestrogens. And 2 out of the 3 options are toxic. And we see over and over and over and over again that this is what women make. And you would think, well, why are we designed to make toxins that hurt us? Because you were designed assuming that your context was very different than today. Your ancestors didn't breathe in chemicals with every breath. They didn't use plastics that disrupted their hormones. They didn't take birth control pills for 10 years. They didn't use Teflon coated frying pans that are highly disruptive. Your air fryer is coated with Teflon that you use daily. So all of these hormone mimicking inputs didn't exist for our ancestors. And so for them to have some level of toxic byproduct didn't really cause a health concern. Their detox system, and the other side of it is every other toxic load also didn't need to be dealt with. So they also weren't dealing with horrible food and crazy stress and lack of sleep. So the total threshold was at a much lower point. And this is very important because your cells can handle some level of toxicity. In fact, you need some level of threat and inflammation to keep you young. This is why we recommend some people practice breath holding and cold plunging and things that actually stress your body in a healthy way. We are designed when it comes to inflammation for an acute response. What is inflammation? Our ancestors used to drop a hammer on their foot, and then it needed to be fixed. So the body would get inflamed and it would start repairing tissue. And that is healthy, an acute inflammatory response. This is why our bodies get inflamed. But when it's chronic, that you're constantly dripping and triggering nonstop because you're estrogen dominant and toxic, and because your hormone disrupting environment is pushing you over the edge of how much your body can actually cope with. And now that inflammation is chronic. That's where you get to disease state, right? So that's the unhealthy inflammation. This is why I'm saying when it comes to hormones, very, very important for women to focus here. For me, I used it to understand the ideal fitness for myself, training. It worked highly efficiently. I got there really quickly. I also understood what my goals should be. I'm not designed to be Dwayne Johnson. So if I started to go try and bench press 400 pounds with my reward-seeking behavior, I would be disappointed and quit. I understood that I'm designed to be more like, call it Captain America, if I was in my prime, where I'm not huge and burly, I'm fit. I can be, right? But I'm not going to get big and strong. So knowing that, I'm now doing exactly the right protocol and regimen to get to that goal and maintain myself at that level. I'm not ready for Hollywood, but I'm in better shape than I've ever been in my life, including my teens. Stronger, less fat, more muscle. I can see it, right? And I feel good when I go to the gym. I'm able to do it. And I can see I'm outperforming the young guys around me because I'm doing exactly what my body needs. So that's what I did with hormones. It's much more comprehensive when it comes to women. Very important. Hormone therapy that women are so much more getting onto. Very important to know where to intervene. I can't tell you how many times we've had to talk to breast cancer patients and tell them, I'm sorry to tell you, but it looks like this was caused by the hormone therapy you're on, which we're not telling you not to take it, but you should have taken something different and intervened somewhere at a different starting point, in that hormone cascade, as opposed to what you did, which was off-the-shelf solution, right? So very important for women. So now I understood hormones. I now, at that point, was getting into a bit of an identity change, where once you start to train and you build a habit that is consistent, it goes from repair to who you are, right? I was no longer acutely trying to fix things. I now became this person who was healthy, right? Friends and people would look at me and start to ask me advice. Hey, what do you think about this supplement? What do you think? Because when I walked in a room, I looked like I was fit, right? So I started to experience identity change. And I would say the biggest impact that happened after that was understanding food. And that didn't happen right away. Yes, there was this acute response of my gut doesn't detox, let's get rid of toxins, right? Fasting is good for you, let's eat less. But just like every other habit, you can't turn everything on day one. This is how you fail. If you try to do everything immediately, you're going to burn yourself out. It's going to be overwhelming. You're going to feel like you didn't accomplish it, and then you're not motivated to continue. There's no dopamine hit from the reward because you didn't actually get it done. And so you need to pare things back a little bit to what's the easiest, lowest hanging fruit. And for me, it wasn't food. Why? My mom is an amazing cook. There's amazing food at home every day. My friends want to go out and eat all the time. I travel a lot and I want to go to restaurants. So food was difficult. And I was training at the gym, trying to put on muscle, thinking I needed so much food and protein. So I had to really, truly achieve this next threshold or plateau of like, I don't see any more improvement. What am I going to do now? And I started to educate. So I kind of implemented everything I had learned. So like, it's time to learn something new. And I started to learn about what was going on in our food system. And that motivated me to start cutting things out. And I would say this was, if everything in what I discussed up until now was like phase one, this was phase two. And if anyone can do phase two, this will completely change your health trajectory. This is like the same outcome as the biohackers going spending $200,000 at some biohacking guru's gym and doing every kind of treatment and buying machines to put in your house. This just eating for your body the way it's meant to eat completely elevates your health. And what does that mean? It's much more strict than people think, and you keep learning as you go along. And you keep making small changes, small changes, small changes, small changes. It started off with, let me eat more plants, let me eat less fat. And I started to learn that wasn't actually good for me. Then it's like, let me eat organic foods. Then it was like, what is the packaging of the organic food? There's plastics in there. Then it was like, oh, seed oils are highly inflammatory. I'm not going to eat at restaurants unless it's just fresh food that's grilled with no oil. I can no longer eat uh, cheap chicken because it's full of linoleic acid and omega-6. I was eating a lot of chicken because I was going to the gym and I wasn't feeling the best, actually. So I didn't realize that chicken was overloading me with inflammatory, insults. And then you start to replace your sugary treats with stuff that is clean and pure, and you start to eat more fruit. And then you start to understand that your fruit is genetically altered and doesn't deliver you the thing that you thought it was supposed to deliver you. And so you start to find better sources, and you start to understand what actually a healthy plant is. And so you go down this rabbit hole of making it better and better and better and better and better and better. And I'm now at the point where I eat 2 meals, and my first one is like at 3-4 o'clock in the afternoon, and I'm not hungry until that point, and I'm working out before that, and I have incredible energy because your body learns slowly. When you wake up, your body is designed to not need food. This is a big myth. Breakfast is a lie. Breaking your fast is true, but having it in the morning is a lie. Why? Your liver actually is designed to store enough energy for you. There's these glycogen reserves that allow you to have energy in the morning, and you only use them if there's no fuel in your blood. If you have a bowl of cereal or a bagel and you put carbs and sugar into your blood, then guess what? You don't use those reserves that your ancestral trait programmed your body to produce for you, because that's what would happen. Our ancestors would wake up and have to go look for food every day. They didn't have refrigerators and they didn't have ovens, and they would go out and find food, and they often wouldn't eat until late in the evening because that's when they finally found an animal to kill or a plant that wasn't toxic, right? The hunters and gatherers, which is the biggest timeline of our ancestral chronology. So if you look at the 200,000-ish years that we in this genetic form have been on this planet, the majority of that was spent as hunter-gatherers. So we are wired for those habits still today. Our reality, modern agriculture, is only 10,000 years old. So it's only 5%, actually less than 5%, because it's actually 250,000 years. So it's good 7-ish% is of our ancestral traits were based in this agricultural, where you can actually go farm food and get it consistently. Our industrialized food reality is only 50 years old. The food we eat today, industrial food, started approximately in the 1970s. It was experimented on in the 50s and 60s, but it really became mainstream in the 70s. And by 80s, everybody had, garbage in their lunchbox when they were going to school, right? So this blip in time that we are experiencing this reality is very different than what our bodies are wired for. And so you have to think about ancestral traits, like the fact that they didn't eat until afternoon or evening, which is why I now feel better than I ever have, not eating until later in the day. And I will go work out at 12, 1 o'clock, eat at like 3, 4 o'clock, and I have full energy to do everything I need to do at the gym. I'm outperforming the younger guys that are right next to me, who ate their cereal in the morning with the protein powder that they probably should have skipped, right? So food is a big one. We can spend a couple hours just on that. But what I'm saying to you is, get that acute, here's your, again, system failure. What's my body doing? Genetic code problem. Here's the thing I need to prioritize. Here's the habits for that. Here's the behaviors I need to adopt. And now all of a sudden, let's deal with my problem, the thing that's bugging me, or the thing that maybe isn't bugging me yet, but I can see a red flag is my problem. Let's deal with that. Then you get to this point, phase one is done. You're now in identity change and you start to seek out new habits. Focus on food. It's going to be your biggest return, and go down the rabbit hole. Listen to the podcast, read the books, learn about food. Books like, for example, Sally Norton. She just wrote a book called Toxic Superfoods. People that are eating baby spinach thinking that it's good for them, but it's full of oxalates. Almond milk, full of oxalates. So start to learn and about food, and make food your hobby, meaning learning about it and sort of changing your ways and your family's ways. Make that your hobby. Make that sense of reward you get coming from incremental improvements on your food. And I'm not saying to do it overnight. I'm saying to spend a year on it. Spend a year on it. Don't try and hack it. Slowly make changes. And after your year, you're going to be a different version of yourself, where when you go out to Starbucks and you buy a cake pop and you bite into it, you're going to spit it out. That's literally what just happened to me. Went to a Starbucks. My daughter asked for a cake pop. I said, let me take a little bite. I don't say no to sugar. Like, I have to live, right? It's not my mainstay, but if I'm at a wedding, on a holiday, whatever, I'll have a little treat because I know I'm so healthy that my body will get over it, right? I bit into it and I spat it out because it tasted like toxic garbage to me. Whereas 3 years ago, I would have finished the whole thing and not known the difference, right? Meanwhile, 3 years ago, I didn't know what a carrot tasted like, because if I bit into a carrot, my palate wasn't adjusted to taste the sweetness of the carrot. Now, when I taste a carrot, it tastes like dessert because my palate has been adjusted and I can taste the sugars in the carrot. So that's why I'm saying incremental change, right? And food is the biggest area we're going to do that. So after that was all done, so now I'm eating clean. People know that it's going to be trouble if they go to lunch with me, right? And I'm going to coach them on what to eat, etc. That's when, call it, the biohacking stuff started, right? So now you optimize yourself. You're kind of doing things right with your daily habits. Daily habits means I'm going to sleep anyway. I'm going to eat anyway. I'm going to exercise anyway. I'm going to talk to people anyway. I'm going to go to work anyway. Let me do the things that I already do the best possible way. That's phase two, right? Phase one is the acute, deal with my stuff, all of what I've learned, start to do things. I started to implement. Phase two is now let's take all of my habits, all of what I do from when I wake up to go to sleep, and let's now make it so that I'm always choosing the best option for whatever those things are, from sleep to food, right? Phase three, which I feel like I'm still in, but I'm sort of on a tail end of it, is now optimizing those things. Now finding the biohacks. Now measuring and tracking, now making minute changes where that 1% change maybe wouldn't have turned the dial. Maybe your body wouldn't even noticed it 2 years ago. But now you've gotten the terrain so healthy that 1 or 2% is what you need to focus on, right? And you're fine tuning like an athlete who does stretching and rolling with pads that normal people don't do at the gym because they've already done all of what you do at the gym. Now they're fine tuning and doing a little bit more, right? And that's when you start to go out and experience and learn biohacking tools. You might start listening to podcasts about longevity. You might start adding minerals and other supplements that you aren't for a specific, there's no causation, there's no problem you're trying to solve. It's more like, I know there's no minerals in the food, so I'm going to add minerals. I know that my water is toxic, so I'm going to buy a reverse osmosis machine. I know that, my school or my office has chemicals, so I'm going to take this detox pill. I know that when I fly in an airplane, I'm exposed in an EMF capsule for hours, electronic frequency, so I'm going to take some detox pills before getting on the flight. I might buy an EMF jacket that blocks the signal. I might buy an EMF pendant. So now you start to add, first was like learn and fix. Second was optimize your existing habits. And food is a really good example of taking something you're going to do anyway and become really good at knowing what's right and wrong. And then third is I'm going to start adding stuff now. And I didn't start doing this until 3 years in, right? And this wasn't a plan that was laid out for me. This was me doing things, learning very day one that brain is where I started, and understanding how I think and perceive, and doing things in a way where I wasn't going to burn out, where it was going to stick, where it became a permanent habit, where the people around me were able to cope with the change, because that's part of the reality. You have friends and family, they also have to understand who you are, right? And support it. Where I wasn't overwhelming myself with too many habit changes, right? Where it was built into my routine and not something I would forget, right? So I spent 2.5 years on that before I started to add. And add is now, I don't go on a plane without an EMF necklace, right? And Andrea, perfect example. Living water is the best. Structured water, living water. There's guys in California that, just to speak to Andrea's example, which he just dropped in the chat here. And by the way, you're welcome to keep chatting away if you'd like. We're going to get into Q&A soon anyway. Living water is a perfect example. What is living water? These guys go out into the deserts and forests in California. They go into sort of caves and caverns where there's natural flowing spring water that has never seen sun, and they transport it at night in a glass jar, so it's never contaminated by water and by light or plastic, right? So light changes water, plastic changes water, and then it's brought and delivered to your home, and it's living water, right? That's a crazy habit to adopt, to say that that's the only water I drink. But once you get into the sort of phase 3 thinking, you can do those things, and you will, and you won't want to drink regular water, right? I'm very careful when I travel. Luckily, most of the conferences I go to are health related, so I can find good options while I'm there. There was actually living water last week. I was in Austin at a conference, and the living water guys were there. So, or there's quantum physics people there where I can actually put my water on it and structure it, and it becomes more healthy for me. So these are the things that you're hearing. Oh, there you go. There's another one. There's ionizers that can produce a molecular hydrogen, right? So there's things you can do. So, and these things will keep coming, and we'll keep learning, and we'll keep adding them. And that's what I mean, phase 3. Now start to add. And you'll reach that plateau of kind of like, well, I'm doing everything right now, right? So maybe I might experiment with some oxygen therapy. I saw this podcast with this guy who was sitting in this oxygen chamber, and he said it's going to make him live another 10 years. I think I can add that to my routine. You know what? I might get a PEMF mat so it's instead of EMF, PEMF, which is actually a healthy electronic signal. And I'm going to put it on my chair so that whenever I'm sitting and working, I'm actually being healed at the cellular level, because PEMF waves are being put into my body and healing my cells, right? I might buy a PEMF yoga mat, and I might do my stretching on that mat. I might buy a mattress cooler, a chili pad, so that my mattress doesn't go past a certain temperature and overheat where my sleep gets disrupted. So this is where you start to add things. And all the things I'm saying, by the way, again, outside of the oxygen chamber and that stuff, they're still not, call it, $2 million, how do I reverse my biological age type things. That type of solution, and now all of what I've described, right, before we get into Q&A, is a very different way of thinking than I am a biotech company that here's my $2 million anti-aging solution. That solution is coming at it with the same modality as we currently deal with healthcare, which is you go do whatever you want, and when you break yourself, it's the doctor's job to fix you. That's healthcare, right? Go keep doing it. We're not going to talk to you about your diet and lifestyle, and we're not going to tell you what to avoid and what to add. We're saying you need to live, so go live. And guess what? When something stops working, come to me and I'll give you a pill. This is the same solution that we're seeing over here, which is here's all the equipment and science and technology that was curated for a CEO who doesn't want to do the work and will come once a year and spend $2 million, which is not the right answer for most of us, which is why I thought this webinar was so important. The right answer for most of us is to go through the journey I went through and slowly change your habits so you don't need this $2 million treatment. You're already reversed in biological age and at your optimal health, your full potential, right? By doing what I just said, which is understanding how the body systems works, understanding red flags in your genome, understanding what epigenetics habits turn those on and off, and then creating the behavior change, very purposely designing habits so that these things stick and they're permanent. So before we get into questions, that's the last thing that I was going to talk about, was, and by the way, we can go deep on any of these areas, brain, heart. I did a lot more than what I'm talking about, but I wanted to give it to you in the form of structure, not in the form of what you normally hear, which is go do this and go do that. That's one thing, right? And you still don't know what to do. And you still need to ask, what's next? What's next? What I wanted to provide you was the structure of how I was able to do things so you can build your own story, right? You can build your own path to healing. Because now that you have the structure, here's a way that I can do this. Everyone can do it. And that was my promise to you, is I'm going to tell you how I did it so that you can go do it. And I'm not going to tell you, go take this pill, go take this pill. Your genome might tell you that, but I am going to tell you, here's the structure of how I did it, so that you can go do it. That was the whole point of today. So the last piece when it comes to structure, and by the way, I know some of you were direct messaging me saying that, is there coaching? Can we buy a test? Da, da, da. So, the purpose of today wasn't like, hey, come here and we're going to offer you something to buy. It was truly what we said, which was come learn what I did so that you can also do it. Yes, there will be a shameless plug because so many people ask, so we will plug in something. In fact, Julius, you can even put it in now just so that it's there because people did ask. Just for the people that are here, anyone that gets the replay, you're welcome to use this code to get a discount on testing if you need it. I know a lot of you are here have already been tested, and a lot of you that are going to watch the replay have already been tested. But anyways, that's there for you, and we'll make sure that it's available for a few days so that the people that are getting the replay also get it. Going back to the topic at hand is me teaching you what I did so you can do it. But many people messaged me saying, oh, this is great, I'm excited. Is there a discount? Is there coaching? Are you taking on patients and clients? Get the test. And if anyone needs support in terms of services, coaching, whatever, I'll actually drop my email in here and we'll figure out what you need. We may have a coach that can help you. Oh, sorry, I misspelled that. There may be events that we can invite you to, depending on what you need, right? So the goal is like, how do we make this fit in your structure? So, oh, sorry, I only sent that to Julius, not the group. 1 second. There, Julius did it for me. Thank you. So there, anyways, anyone needing to know, the code is there. If there's questions beyond this in terms of coaching, support, whatever, because those were all the questions I was getting on messaging on Instagram after our thing went out, go ahead and message me, whatever, and I'll see if we may not be able to help. If we can, I'll direct you to the right person on our team. So going back to the topic at hand, the last thing that I want to tell you about in terms of giving you structure was, how do you actually do that last part, what I said, developing the habit. So here's a system. I now understand the body, right? And we have tons and tons of content. If you want to go to our podcast, if you want to get videos from us, there's so much we have that can teach you about the functional interpretation of the body and how it works. So that's there for you. And you can learn on your own. There's plenty of podcasts and functional medicine doctors. Second is my genome. What's going on? Like, what are my red flags? Third is those, now based on what I now know about my genome, what are the right habits? And the fourth and most important part is, how do I actually make these behaviors stick? So, sorry, somebody asked, can you send us PEMF products you would suggest? Yeah, I'll actually show you one that I have right here. And I'll just finish this little piece. Then we'll get into Q&A and I'll also answer that question. So the last piece I want to share with you in terms of giving you structure, right? So how do you actually change a behavior? Because once you've got to this step 4, right, in the 3 phases, phase 1 is like acute response, learning, exploring, fixing my problems, figuring out what my problems even are. Phase 2 is like, oh, I have a bit of identity change going on here. Let me change all my habits now so that I become the optimal version of myself. Part 3 is, now I'm going to start adding, right? I'm going to start biohacking. I'm going to start listening to podcasts. I don't watch Netflix anymore. I only listen to podcasts now. So true identity change. So how do you get there? We believe there's 6 phases to behavior change. So we spent an entire year working with a gentleman named Dr. BJ Fogg. So BJ Fogg runs the Stanford University Behavioral Change Lab, brilliant guy. He wrote the book Tiny Habits, which is a New York Times bestseller about how to actually change your habits. He's so good at it, by the way, that Instagram, where most of us met, his students actually built Instagram. So his students went to Stanford, took his course on behavioral change, and made an app that constantly changes your behavior and makes you do things they want you to do, right? So that's how good he is. So we said, hey, we figured out these first three things up until what to recommend, but how do we actually get people to do it so that they experience change? If we're not changing their life, what good is all this, right? So he spent a year with us doing that. And what we learned, if I were to take 1 year of working with BJ Fogg and distill it into 6 things, which is what we teach our coaches internally, these are the 6 things. The first thing is simply identifying a golden habit, not even doing it, just identifying it. What does that mean? Okay, my problem is I can't sleep at night, right? So the habit might be that I shouldn't be having blue light. That's why I can't sleep at night, blue light, right? That's it. Because even in that 1-2 weeks of thinking about identifying the habit, it allows your brain to start changing how you think about the problem. You're now working towards solutioning as opposed to participating. You're no longer in it. You're really training your brain to get ready. There's change coming, and change that's going to stick. It's not a shock to the system when it actually lands. I'm ready for it. I built myself up because all I'm doing is identifying the habit, which means I'm thinking, and I'm thinking about this problem as a problem. So I'm learning that it is a problem, right? So that's it. Now, step 2 of the 6 is designing the habit. Now that I know I can't have blue light, it screws up my sleep, right? Step 2 is designing the habit. So you pick the easiest, lowest hanging fruit, and you do only that. You're not trying to do the 3 years of work I did. You're trying to do one thing. The one thing is, identify the habit, no more blue light. Okay. Designing the habit is I'm going to take my laptop and I'm going to put it into my basement at 9 p.m. There's going to be an alarm on my phone, and that's what I'm going to do, right? And that way, I have no, like, it's structured, right? So I've designed the habit in a way where it's going to happen. It's easy. It's not burdensome. And it's going to happen. So that's step 2. So it could be as simple as, I know I don't need blue light. I'm going to set an alarm on my phone, 9 p.m. laptop goes in the basement, and I don't pick it up until the morning. There's no temptation to be on it. It's no longer in my bed, right? Step 3 is now what we call scaling the habit. What does scaling the habit mean? I'm now doing this. I've been doing this for 2 weeks. Every day at 9 p.m., my laptop goes in the basement, and it's nowhere near the rest of my evening experience. Scaling the habit means, what happens when I go visit mom at Christmas time? What happens when I'm working late in the office? What happens when I'm traveling? Right? So there's scaling the habit of taking it into other contexts and areas. There's also scaling the habit of adding to it, meaning not only am I putting my laptop away, I'm also turning off Netflix, and I'm turning off my phone, do not disturb, and I'm buying blue light filter glasses. So I've scaled the habit. The habit of I put my laptop away, I've scaled it by thinking about what happens in different areas where I don't have a basement safe place. What do I do at mom's house? What do I do at my kid's house? But those types of thinking. And I'm going to add to it by also getting rid of my phone, my TV, and I'm adding blue light filter glasses. So I just scaled that habit. And you go from here to here. It might take you a couple months to do this. It doesn't have to happen overnight, right? But the identity change and what you're doing to your brain and the new neural pathways you're developing and how you start to change the way your brain thinks about problem solving, very, very powerful. Now, step 4 is, okay, I've done all this. Now I'm going to go back to the beginning, and I'm going to pick a difficult habit, because what I picked was the easy one, which is what you should do. The easy one is no more blue light. The difficult habit might be, I don't sleep at night. I need blackout blinds, but I can't afford them. I need to spend $5,000 to buy blackout blinds. And that wasn't my first thing, because I don't want to spend $5,000. I wasn't even really convinced this was a problem. Now I really know that my sleep is getting better, and me changing my habits can change my life. I think I'm going to buy those blackout blinds, and I'm going to stop doing ABC for the next 6 months so that I can afford it. Right? That's now doing the exact same process over again with a difficult habit, something that you were trying to avoid. Right? So now you've done that and you become really good at implementing habit change. There's 2 more phases which speak to the 3 phases I was talking about earlier of like longitudinal change. And one of them is starting to change the people around you, right? So as opposed to I'm just changing myself, now I've done this, I'm really good at it. I'm now going to change my family. I don't eat bread, right? But the kids need bread, they go to school. I don't drink Coca-Cola anymore, but the kids have to go to birthday parties, right? But what if I can go from implementation to advocation, that I can actually get them to also change and I become a source of change? That's sort of step 5, right? Step 5 is now the people around me are changing. Mom knows when I come for Christmas dinner what to cook. I've also changed her. She knows I'm not going to eat what I used to eat, right? So I start to change the people around me. Very, very powerful, because you start to become the source of truth. And not only are you changing yourself and you're changing them, you become a guide for people that come out of the woodwork that you didn't even know. A cousin calls like, oh, I heard you were doing this thing. Can you please tell me? I was going to start exercising. What do you think about this? Right? And you become that source of truth, and everyone around you starts to change. So it's that implementation application. And now that takes you to step 6, which is identity change. When is this complete? When your identity has changed. It happened for me when Bryce, our co-founder, called me a biohacker, right? I said, I'm not a biohacker. He said, yeah, you are. What is a biohacker? You're a biohacker. You're constantly hacking your bio. That's biohacking, right? You're doing things constantly to improve yourself. That's not medical. That's like, cellular health related, right down to the cell. You're a biohacker. And I realized, oh yeah, I am. So identity change, right? So that's who I am now. I'm not trying to work out. I work out. If somebody asks me, what do you do? Yeah, I work out. I work out 5 or 6 days a week. I don't feel right if I don't. I do it. That's who I am, right? So so once you've been able to do this step 5 of like, I'm starting to change the people around you, it allows you to jump over to the ultimate goal of identity change. This is who I am, which means it's permanent, and I'm not going back to those old habits, right? To be able to say something like, I don't smoke, right? That's an identity thing. To be able to say that about sugar or sleep, or about, no, I sleep at 10 p.m. It's not negotiable for me. Don't book the meeting for me at 6 a.m. because I won't get enough sleep. So that identity change is where you want to be. And take these, what I just said, these 6 phases, and build them into these 3 phases. You have to do it each time, right? So you're doing these 6 to finish phase 1, 6 to finish phase 2, 6 to finish phase 3. And that's kind of where I'm at now. I'm learning and experimenting with all this stuff, to the point where I just learned yesterday that the frequency that's in water is beneficial to the jurisdiction that you're in. So when I drink a bottle of Evian water from France, it actually isn't healthy for me. It's healthy for the people in France, because the environment, weather, everything that's happening local there, the water is designed to provide you the quantum benefit of the person that's supposed to be in that environment. That's why local and seasonal is so important, because these foods are not just protein and carbs. They do a lot more, right? They do a lot more, assuming that you're in the jurisdiction from where they came from. So that's something I just learned yesterday. And it's not something I'm now going to start to practice. So this will never end. But my identity now is biohacker, constantly learning and changing, improving, and learning and changing, improving. And I'm never going to stop improving, because I don't think science will ever stop learning and teaching. So with that, I hope that was beneficial, and I hope you understand why, rather than getting into go do this, go do that, I wanted to give you structure. Like what's the journey I went on, because then you can take, it's an old story of teach someone to fish or get them a fish. I'd rather teach you to fish, right? So you can do it on your own. So if you follow the structure I went through, and you'll get a replay so you can watch this again if you need to. Here's what I did. Here's the kind of steps which work for me. There may be some nuances where you need to focus on something else first, obviously, but in general, this is what I went through, which kind of got me to this identity change, and I am a different person now, right? So with that, let's get into some questions, and you're welcome to drop them right into the chat, as some people have. So PEMF, there's a doctor named William Pollock, Pawluk, I think. Yeah, Pawluk. He's a brilliant guy when it comes to PEMF. I mean, he's not an inventor or creator. He just knows a lot about it. He's a medical doctor, but he does not take a patient unless they're willing to work on PEMF. So I think we actually did a podcast with him. It might be, I'm not sure if it's published yet. But even if you search, you'll find interviews with him. If you want guidance, I would work with him. If you just want to buy a product, I would say there's a company called Therasage. I'll type it in here. They make saunas, and they make cold plunges, and they also make PEMF mats. And the one really cool thing they've done, which I haven't seen in a lot of PEMF mats, is they've actually embedded crystals into the PEMF mats, because those crystals emit certain frequencies. So not only are you getting the electric pulse benefit, but you're also getting the crystal benefit of the frequency, which is proven. It adjusts cellular health. So look up Therasage. They do a good job. Tell them you came from the DNA company. They might support you a little bit there. They're good friends. They were also in Austin, by the way, but they make a good line of products, and their PMF. One great thing they did is they made a PMF mat that's on your chair. One of the challenges of PMF is, when do I do it? And this goes back to, how do you make a habit easy? How do you make it easy? Well, I'm already sitting here. I might as well do it while I'm sitting here. So they made one that actually goes in your chair, which I think is really nice. Okay, I'm going to try and go to these questions in the order that they came. The structure in the book, not quite. So remember, when you publish a book, you start writing it 2 years before it actually hits the shelf, right? So this book got finished being written a year ago, and I'm still learning. So and yes, there's more books coming. There's no doubt. I'm going to keep writing about whatever it is. But what is in the book is a much more expanded explanation of what I did for myself, how I used my genome to heal myself. So that is what the book is about. By the way, if anyone is not familiar, I'll just type into here, the DNAway.com. Just go to that link, and that will show you the book. In fact, I got an email last night, that Barnes and Noble, it's pre-launch right now. The book is coming out May 16th. But Barnes and Noble decided to feature this book, which is an honor, and they're having a 25% off sale on our book and a few other books. So anybody that's interested in the book, go to Barnes and Noble and buy it between the 26th and the 28th, which is tomorrow, I think, for the next couple of days, and you can get 25% off. I just got an email yesterday from our publisher saying, if anyone wants to know, there you go. So and the Barnes and Noble link, by the way, is the DNA Way link that I just put in the chat. You can access it through there also. We put the retailers on there. So the book is a much more comprehensive look at what I did for myself, right, in each system. So Mindset Mary. Oh, hey, Mary, how are you doing? I highly recommend the test to everyone. Thank you so much for saying that. Yeah, Mary, I met with her. We did a podcast together actually a few weeks ago, which was awesome. It was more of an interview, I should say, not a podcast. But thank you, Mary, very kind. Regarding food, what can we eat if everything is toxic? There you go. So the ideal is, depending where you live, you're finding local farmers, right? And you're going to farmers markets. And you're talking directly to the farmers. So keep in mind, when you buy food that's on a grocery shelf, it was picked while it was still raw, and it is ripened while it's in the box being shipped to the store, and then it's sprayed with water and things to make it look fresh. A piece of broccoli is not always a piece of broccoli. If it does not deliver you the nutrient value you think you're getting, and all you're doing is filling your stomach, you're not really getting the outcome you were seeking, right? So ideally, food is meant to be eaten plucked ripe, which is very hard to find today. It's almost, it's almost something to be said about buying frozen food, because it was actually frozen when it was ripe. So it was actually fully ripened, as opposed to buying something fresh on the shelf. If you can buy organic, clean, frozen plants and vegetables. But yeah, everything is toxic. It's a big problem. For sure, it's a big problem. Learn to read labels. Again, easy habit. Step one, learn how to read a label. What does all that stuff on the label mean? What do I need to look out for? Why is it that when I buy something at a restaurant in the UK, it has 5 ingredients, and when I buy something at a restaurant in the same exact restaurant with the same exact product in the US, it has 20 ingredients because the rest are all chemicals, right? So start to understand labels. Start to read books like Sally Norton's, Toxic Superfoods. There's a book called Metabolical, I think. I don't remember the author's name, but it's all about how food is making us sick, and it was an amazing book. Um, and start to join forums like this where you have peers, right? Don't rely on what the grocery store is saying. Rely on, join our Instagram account, by the way. So my personal account, we talk about food a lot. And what you'll find is the people that are commenting on there are quite knowledgeable, right? They'll guide you whenever you even go right now. I'll type it in here. Cash Con Official. That's my Instagram account. Go there and start looking about some of the posts about food and read what the commenters are writing. These are people that are, commenting because they believe in our mission, and they also have had to go through certain other things. So, yeah, that's another great resource. So go to Instagram, sorry, read through comments, and you'll see lots of people recommending a lot of great things on any of the food posts. Okay, so what water do you recommend if you live in Ontario? So this is something I've learned recently. So what I do right now is I use reverse osmosis and I add minerals. I haven't found a great product when it comes to local Ontario water. I'm not saying it doesn't exist. I haven't found it. So what I rely on is for my tap water to be clean. What is reverse osmosis? The only thing left is H2O, water. The problem with that is you need minerals in your water and you need to structure your water. So that's what I would say, reverse osmosis, and then add minerals. There's a great company. There's a couple of them. I can type them in. There's a company called Redmond's Real Salt. I'll type it in here. Redmond's Real Salt. It's a salt that comes out of these caves in Utah that used to be ancient seabeds. And they're very mineral rich, more than Himalayan pink sea salt, by the way. And then there's also a product called LMNT. I'm going to type these in here. And there's a product called Beam, BEAM. These are all great products for minerals that you can add to your water. Celtic sea salt is also great. I would tell you that the Redmond's salt, the Utah, that particular mine, is the most mineral rich of any that I've seen to date. Celtic is great. It's, amazing. This stuff has a little bit more of a mineral profile. So that's what I would recommend for Ontario. Who was the doctor that did the behavioral change? Yes, thank you. Julius answered that. Dr. BJ Fogg, Tiny Habits is his book. Do coaches request any blood work? So that depends what level of work you're doing with us. So if you want to get into clinical work, they can and will recommend blood work. If not, so we have sort of 3 tiers of programs that we work on. One is, let us fix your problem. One thing, right? Was like, I can't lose these last 10 pounds. My mom had breast cancer and I don't want it. Like, what's that one thing you're trying to fix? That's one program. Then there's fix everything. I have this problem going on, but I also want you to go through my genome and fix everything that I didn't even know was needing fixing. Like, go through, that's another level. Then we can also add clinical time to that. We do have medical doctors. Our chief medical officer is an MD. He's a functional medicine doctor. So it depends what you need from us. Again, Stephanie, I'll drop my email in here again. If you want to chat about support, we'll figure out what you're trying to resolve, and then maybe we'll direct you to like what the right thing is, right? Next question was, switch to frozen organic vegetables. This is optional. Where would you visit those farms around, check there? Yeah. So John did switch to organic frozen vegetables and fruits, which a lot of people have done because they're flash frozen when they're ripe. So at least you're getting the nutrient value, right? And they probably don't need to be sprayed with as many things because they're frozen. So although it doesn't, what used to be the worst option, now because food is so bad, is the better option, unfortunately. So will you suggest to visit those farms if they are around to check if they are saying the truth? So one thing that I've learned is that these guys don't tend to lie. What they tend to do is bury things. So you can call the farm and they will tell you straightforward. farming is it's a big business. Like running a farm is no longer, the family farm type business. These are huge enterprises. They cannot afford to lie, right? What they can afford to do is, kind of hide information and use language that is not truly saying that what something is. So, for example, your ingredients on the label tell you what food you're eating. If there's chemicals used to process the food, that's not food. So there's no requirement to list those. So you mean, instead of asking, is your label correct? You may ask the question, are there any chemicals used in the processing that you're not on the label because you're not required to list them? And you may get a very different answer than if you were to just ask, is this real? Right? Because they'll say, yes, it is real because that's true. Because the requirement on a food label is to list the food, what is considered food. A chemical used for processing is not considered food, but you're still eating it. It's still being delivered with your food. So I would ask them that question, saying, what chemicals were used that are not on your label because they're not required to be? Very simple question that's hard to get around. So Sapna says she feels better. Yeah, when you eat fresh plucked fruits from an unspoiled forest, that's incredible. So what is food, especially plants? We hear you are what you eat, right? But more importantly, you are what you ate. What is the point of eating a plant? The plant takes the minerals and nutrients from the dirt that you can't eat and digest, puts it into the plant and converts it into a context that your body can digest. So you don't eat an orange and get vitamin C. Our brain is limited to that thinking. What you're eating is this orange that was hanging on a branch from a tree that was planted in the ground, that was sucking up nutrients from the ground and putting it into this orange. Which means, where was that tree? What chemicals were in the earth? Are there worms in the earth? Like, is it real soil, or has it been killed from, pesticides and herbicides? And to walk into a forest like Sapna did and eat something that was plucked from the ground, you're eating in its most natural possible state, which is why you're going to feel it's going to taste different. You're going to feel amazing. The nutrient value, you just actually got minerals delivered to you because it was sucked out of sort of virgin, clean earth, right? So for sure you would feel better. Stephanie said, heard the podcast from, yeah, the Redmond salt one just went live this week, I think. We actually interviewed them, by the way. We just really love what they're doing, so we interviewed them about a week ago. Water pipes in Kitchener are examples for super rusty. Yeah. Even if it's so reverse osmosis typically gets everything, from what I understand. I'm not a water expert, but from the testing, like I've actually tested this stuff where we've actually had people sit down there and do like sediment and calcium and chemical and sludge and all the stuff that comes along in your water testing, and seeing that what comes out of reverse osmosis is it's like almost spotless. So yeah, there's a lot of testing to kind of prove it. The only challenge again is you're extracted all the minerals, so you lose all that. Sorry, Andrea, I'm not familiar with what you're asking. ORP of RO? You stumped me on that one. You can, if you don't mind writing it out. Oxidative stress. So what we look for is, so you're talking about the SOD or superoxidative dismutase pathway, which is where oxidative stress happens. So yes, in short, we do. So what we're looking at is we're not testing for levels. That's blood work. What we're testing for is genetically, how does your body do the job of handling oxidative stress and clearing oxidation from both the cell and the blood. So how does that work? As you're sitting here with us tonight, you're breathing and you're taking in oxygen, which then combines with the nutrition in your blood, enters the cell at the mitochondria, that gets converted into energy, ATP, and in that product, you create a oxidant, which is a byproduct of using oxygen as fuel. So that oxidant there's different levels of efficiency at which we clear that from the cell, right? Most of us, by the way, aren't doing that the best. Then once you've cleared it from the cell and put it out into the blood, there's different levels of efficiency at which we actually send it to the liver to metabolize and get rid of it. So yes, we do look at those two pathways, the antioxidant pathway genetically, and there's a few genes that are implicit there. And we look at the glutathione pathway, that's more the clearance, phase 2, right? And we look at the methylation, which is the anti-inflammatory, which is sort of also part of phase 2. So yes, we're not looking at oxidative stress levels. We're more looking at, like I said, biological function. What's the map? Okay, here's the map. It's oxidative stress, it's glutathione. What are the genes involved? Here's your red flag. You're not doing this job well. Now you know I shouldn't be doing cardiovascular training 5 days a week because I don't deal well with oxidative stress, right? So that's how we look at it. So question from Rochelle is, I'm not sorry, I think it's Rochelle, maybe Rachel. For women who have trouble with solid sleep, do you think it's more gut or some hormone issue? So age matters. So are you menopausal or not? I would say gut is the first thing you heal. You may see major changes there. Biooptimizers make some amazing gut products. I don't know if I'll type that in there. Biooptimizers. They make some of the best gut products I've seen. Oh, I keep sending messages to Julius. Sorry. Type it again. They make some great stuff. Microbiome Labs make some great stuff. So I would recommend working with those to heal your gut. And yes, when it comes to fixing sleep, you start with the gut. You also start with habits like scheduling and blue light. Maybe we make a product called Sleep Optimizer, which we've understood the genetics of how to get your brain into that deep state and keep it there. So you're not in and out, but you're kind of staying there. So even supplementing with the right thing, understanding is a more circadian rhythm issue. Like I can't fall asleep. There's a very different solution for that than I can't stay asleep versus I sleep through the night, but when I wake up, I don't feel rested. That's another problem. That's more a detox problem. That's where, glutathione pathways may be so off that you're so burdened by what you were exposed to the day before that you're not able to overcome it during your sleep. And so you wake up feeling not rested, like you need more sleep. That's a whole other problem to solve. So again, we look at it as biological function, and then which genome or which section of the genome is not working. Then we know what to action. We know what epigenetics habits to look at, and then we know what behaviors to recommend. So that's kind of how we look at things. But yes, in a big way, it can be fixed. And we know for a lot of women, menopause is a problem, and there's a whole other layer of things to work on then. But yes, it can be fixed. Oh, sorry, for reverse osmosis. Uh, I'm not sure. So from what I understand, and by the way, we do know someone that's really good at this, who, Andrea, if you want to email me directly, I'll get like a real precise answer from them. But from what I understand, I don't think that's a challenge. Like you're getting pure H2O on the other end of it. I don't think there's a reduction in oxygen because what is water? It's H2O. So we're not the reverse osmosis membrane, let's call it, that's filtering, isn't really looking to remove oxygen, if that's your question. But I do know a guy that's really good at this stuff, so I can get him to, again, email me and I'll get him to comment, but I don't think it's a problem. Lung health. So GSTP1 is the main gene that directs the glutathione pathway to protect your lungs. So a lot of us don't do a good job of blocking airborne inhalation-based toxins like mold, chemicals, pesticides, cleaning agents from entering our bloodstream. Some of us are doing well, which becomes less of a concern. So it's GSTP1. Take a look at that one. Then you may also want to look at GSTT1, because GSTP1 is this first line of defense. How well do I block toxins from entering my body, right? Now, if I don't have such a good GSTP1, I also need to look at GSTT1, which is the second line of defense. Once the stuff has gotten in, how well do I bind and clear it? right? So it's a combination of these two to be truly functional about it, which is, again, we look at biological function first to then understand what genes to look at, right? Okay. What medical practitioner is the best to talk about my DNA results? So we have functional genomics trained practitioners. We have programs that we put people through because we typically find, again, the behavior change is the most important part. So just telling somebody something doesn't often get the outcome unless they cognitively are wired for reward like I am, and they kind of overdo it. So even that sometimes need to be slowed down a little bit. So we have coaches. I've dropped my email in here a couple of times. You can connect with me and I can direct you. But if there's a specific need, or if it's just like, hey, I want someone to tell me about my genes, we're actually going to be launching a webinar series for people that have their DNA results in hand to get more out of them, because we understand that there's people that there's no problem. It's just more like, hey, I just want to know a little bit more. So we're launching a webinar series for that sometime in May. And if you have a test, you'll be invited to that. You're on our list. Just look out for an email. So Candy has a grant that delivers spring water in Ontario to advertise some of the cleanest water in the world. It's a large underwater reservoir. And oh wow, that's awesome. So it's an aquifer that is a large underground reservoir that is fed by rainwater and snowmelt by surrounding hills. And the farm pesticides, yeah. So depending on the flow, that could be a concern. It's not difficult to test the water, by the way. So I would ask, so if I was you, I would ask them that question. I would say, this claim of the cleanest water in the world, how do you deal with the runoff that comes from the farms, because they're full of chemicals? Straightforward. They may already have the answer, or they may have not thought about it. So it's amazing how oblivious a lot of people are, just haven't even thought about that this even happens, right? So I would ask them that question. That being said, there's water testing is not difficult. Every city hall usually does water testing. It's a free service because it's like a mandatory service, just like garbage, right? So garbage collection. So they do water testing. You might want to have 1 glass of tap water, 1 glass of this water ready to go when the water tester shows up. And typically it's a free service. So I would do that. I would call them and I would ask. But yeah, to me, it does sound like a concern. If they're sitting in a valley amongst farms, where does the chemicals go? They run off into water, right? So I would look at that. So Danielle says breast cancer survivors are having to take therapies that disrupt our bodies. That's her. Making changes from 70 to hormone blockers. Oh wow. So Danielle, have we done your test? This is the exact scenario where I would recommend one of our programs. I don't tell everyone to get a program, like, John above, who just asked who can read my results. I said to him, probably join one of our webinars, you can learn. But for this, I would highly recommend working with one of our practitioners. This is so important for longitudinal health. There's a giant red flag on your health history. The clinicians only know how to deal with it this way. It's no fault of their own. That's the training. They're limited in their training and ability, and this is the only way they know how to deal with it. So that's all you're going to get. Meanwhile, there's so much more that can be done, but it's not a simple, hey, let's have a phone call and figure it out. It's complex and it's work, but there is an answer. So I would put in here again my email. Reach out. We can have one of our intake coaches talk to you. Highly recommend we work on a program with you. Anyways, we'll chat over email. If you find the program is not the right thing for you, we'll still find somebody that can maybe support. But this is not something that there's just a simple answer, go do this, right? I can give you answers, but what you're dealing with, it's so easy to, screw it up, let's say, when it comes to hormones. We don't know if you're estrogen toxic. We don't know if you're estrogen dominant. We don't know if you're androgen toxic. We have to know these things, and we have to be very specific about what dials we turn. Deborah, yeah, so if your 360 test done already, can we use the same test? Yes, exactly. That's exactly what we're saying is, here's biological function. Remember the four steps of how I fix things is, here's how the body works. Here's the red flags in my genome, which are going to inform what are the right epigenetic habits for that problem. You can go back to it the rest of your life. Your genes don't change, right? So when you go from puberty age to fertility age to menopause age, those are very different problems you're dealing with. So you're going back to the same genetic map to inform how to deal with those things. And yes, whatever you're dealing with, whether one day you're depressed or whether one day your gut, you just keep going back to your DNA to say, here's the gene that stands out as a problem. How is this causing this symptom? And in between there's going to be epigenetic habits that need changing, right? Constantly. Yes, EMF is very serious. To Turkey's question, it's very serious. And this is why PEMF is so important. It's a big problem with the electric pollution, even in your home, the Wi-Fi. I would highly recommend your Wi-Fi is off when you're sleeping. I would highly recommend that your kids have EMF blockers when they're using their devices. You know, if you can get a home EMF blockers, which there's things you can plug in your home that block the EMF so that it neutralizes the positive and negative charges so that they pass through your body as opposed to getting stuck in your cells. EMF is a form of a toxin. And the challenge with it, it also allows all other toxins to thrive because your cells are struggling so much, they're no longer available to do the work with what they're normally supposed to do the work against, which is environmental and food toxins. So it's a major, major problem. Where are your clinicians trained in functional? I'm very interested in incorporating. We train them. So the challenge with what we do is nobody does it. We created our own interpretation. So functional genomics is something that we created by dealing with thousands of patients and understanding there's a better way to use genetics, which is functional genomics. So we created a course and training that anyone that works with us takes, right? Some people come with some previous history, like there's a doctor that actually just joined us, a DO, who has a lot of education on genetics, and now she's just learning a little bit how we think and how to take what she knows about the genes and apply it functionally. So to answer your question, you want to incorporate it into your practice, you reach out to me on Instagram. So I would say the best person, I'm going to drop an email out here. One second, let me just give you an email address. Is Allison. So Allison leads our clinical intake team. So I'm going to drop an email in here. This is for Sapna. Email Allison and tell her you're on this webinar tonight and you want to set up an account. She'll help you with that. That's what she does all day long. Okay. No, we have not. Is that the same as your test? Sorry, I don't even remember what question I'd asked you, Danelle, but you said, no, you have not. I had a genetic testing done. Is that the same as your test? Well, depends which test you did. Most genetic tests don't look at the hormone pathway the way we do. And that's why they don't support female health issues. They look at genetic issues. So genetics is this gene means this gene means this. That's genetics. Functional genomics, what we do is here's the pathway, the system, and let's now map out all the genes that inform that system. So it's a map as opposed to a gene, right? That's functional genomics. So most genetic tests don't do that, which is why they don't inform on hormones, because there's no way to look at hormones without looking at the full map. So long story short, tell me the name of which test you did, and I'll tell you whether it works. It's almost certain that it won't, because they usually don't deal with hormones, which is what needs to be dealt with in order to solve your problem. How much help can you really give people with autism? What have you personally seen? Okay, so when it comes to autism, there is something that is real called autism, which children are born with, and we cannot help them. There's a lot of research being done right now on trying to find that magic genetic switch that can be turned on or off. And one day it will be there and we will turn autism off. That being said, the majority of what we call autism today is not autism, and that is what we fix. So what we found, we did a research project a couple of years ago with Sick Kids Hospital here in Toronto, so they deal with autistic children. And what we saw over and over and over again in all these cohorts of kids, 85% of them did not have a genetic condition that they were born with, right? What they had was behavioral development challenges that usually start a few years into life, and all of a sudden they're not what they used to be. And this is why there's a whole argument over, vaccination, the early childhood vaccines. And I'll use that example to answer your question. So the pharma companies are right that the active ingredients in these vaccines do not cause autism. They're right. The parents are also right that that's the day my kid changed. So what happened? What's happening is that vaccine that delivers this ingredient also delivers heavy metals that we genetically know some kids don't detoxify well, that some kids also don't have the methylation capacity to fight the inflammation for. So now they're suffering crazy inflammation. And guess what? Children are underdeveloped neurologically, so they get neural inflammation, and it eventually leads to permanent neural damage, which then gets described as something we call autism, forcing it into the bucket of a real thing that kids are born with, which is a genetic condition. So the genetic condition, which is even less than the 15%, when I said 85%, it used to be 3 generations ago, 1 in 10,000 kids was autistic. Last generation, it was 1 in 500. This generation, it's 1 in 30 for North America, 1 in 30. The kids haven't changed. Their DNA hasn't changed. Who they are hasn't changed. The autism gene that's not what's happened. Is their environment has changed. Their food has changed. The EMF load that was asked about has changed. The toxic packaging of their food has changed. The chemicals that not only preserve foods, but also dry them, that also flavor them, that load has changed. So the inputs what has changed. The kids haven't. And that's why we're now 1 in 30, which tells you that the majority of the difference between the 30 and the 1 in 10,000, that's now 130, don't have a condition. They had an exposure that they weren't genetically designed for. And so, yes, in a big way, we deal with that, which is let's take these kids, not the kids that have a genetic condition, but the majority of them who have an exposure problem, and let's support their methylation pathways and their detox pathways and their mitochondria of their brain to help them with recovery, et cetera. And over and over and over again, we see complete changes in behavioral development. We have kids that are completely dysfunctional that are now making their own breakfast and tying their shoelaces and going to school. Right? You can't fully repair neural damage, but you can reduce the inflammation greatly and create some relief and get them feeling a lot better. Many times we've done it. We've worked with a group called Autism Hope Alliance in the US, and worked on many kids with them. If you live in a condo, big challenge. Living in a condo is not natural. You're not on the ground. You're not grounded. So we weren't meant to spend that much time away from the earth. Even your home, your first floor, if you have a basement underneath you, you're not walking on the ground, you're elevated. We are electric beings, right? We are beings of frequency and electricity, and we are meant to be on the ground. And when you're not healthy. So what I would say is you need to think of this as therapy. You need to ground yourself, but go walk on the grass for some 30 minutes a day, maybe twice a day, right? Ground yourself to allow the body to heal and recover from the Wi-Fi. You can't control your neighbors. You can't control the building and all the electricity going through the walls and powering the whole building. It's very difficult. So, and this is, again, the phases. Phase 1 is I'm going to turn off my Wi-Fi. Phase 2 is I'm going to go do some ground. Phase 3 is I'm selling my condo and moving into a house. I can't afford a nice one, so I'm going to drive an hour to work, right? That's identity change. This is so much of a priority. I don't want to be sick, and I know I can control it, so I'm going to change my environment. Andrea said, how do I know that my medical information is secure? So that's something that we're very, I should say, diligent about and very purposeful about. We do not sell data. We're the only company that I know that actually destroys the genetic sample. The genetic sample is worth a lot of money to be sold to pharma. We destroy it. We very purposefully want to be the company that works with patients ongoing, and that's where our business comes from, as opposed to let me sell you a cheap entertainment test up front and then sell your data to pharma. So my test is actually designed for them and not for you. And this is why, going back to the question about can I use the other DNA tests, that's why they're not designed this way, because they're not looking for how do I solve your hormone balance. They're designed for how do I collect the data that Pfizer wants to buy or that Glaxo. 23andMe, when they did their big funding round in 2019 and they raised $300 million, it was from GlaxoSmithKline, one of the biggest pharma companies in the world. Why did Glaxo give them $300 million? Because they're buying all their data on the back end, and they wanted to fund a massive marketing campaign to just collect a lot more data. So no, we don't do that. It's in our terms. We aggregate and anonymize you. We destroy the sample, and we never sell anything. Which EMF do I have? 1 second. It's actually right in front of me. I'm going to grab it. I have a couple. So this one, it's called the Flex Pulse. And this one is designed, these two pads go on a specific location. And I actually use this for my hand because, again, there's one habit I can't change. I have to work. So I'm on my laptop and I'm on my phone. And I can feel the difference between my right hand and my left hand because of the EMF. My methylation isn't the best, so I'm a little more sensitive to it. So I use this to reverse that. So on a long day where I've been on my, or when I'm traveling, where I'm texting because I'm not in the office, I will use this. And this can, I also use this, by the way, to heal my shoulder. I had a tear in my shoulder. I got what was the treatment called again? I forgot the name of the treatment, where they take your blood and they re-inject it to heal. So I got that done, and then I also use this to accelerate the healing. So that's one thing. Now for full body PEMF, Therasage, I just got the one that goes onto the chair. It's arriving soon, and they also make a mat. So that's what I would recommend. Just answer the same question, Andrea. Do pendants really work? Yeah, so pendants work. It doesn't, the science is kind of weird, like, oh, what's going on here? But they do work if you buy the right one. And really what they're doing is there's negative and positive ions, and they're balancing them. So as they enter your body, they get balanced and pass through, as opposed to stick and cause inflammation. Lila Quantum makes a really cool one where there's this outer capsule. In fact, it's in my pocket right now. You don't even have to wear it. You can just, so this thing here, I sometimes wear as a pendant, but I was at the gym today, so it's in my pocket. Inside it, you can unscrew and open this. There's actual beads that have been charged with the frequency of various minerals and vitamins. And I can tell you, the first day that I wore this, I never took it off because I wasn't used to it. And I couldn't sleep that night. I was like, what's going on? And I remembered I was wearing this thing, which is charged with vitamin D and vitamin B. So my body was getting the frequency of daytime and sunlight, and I couldn't sleep. So it's very effective. Sounds like foo-foo science, but quantum physics and quantum theory is real science, right? So that's what they've used here. So Leela, Leela. Sorry, and Julius has made a note here. You can email, or sorry, if you go in the chat, before you chat, above it, it says everyone. If you just click on the DNA company, you can privately directly send Julius your email address so that he can get the right person to talk to. He's been monitoring the chat, so he knows what your problems are and what you need. So email Julius, or sorry, send a note to Julius with your email address, and he'll connect you to whoever the right people are. Stem cells are amazing. Yes, stem cells are amazing. But again, that's a perfect example. If you don't have the terrain ready to go, I remember 7 or 8 months ago, there was a stem cell conference, and there was a panel where myself and 2 or 3 other people were speaking to the audience, and there was a Q&A, and the 2 other people were both stem cell doctors, and there was a 4th person who was like an influencer that talks about longevity, and they kept talking about which stem cell to get and what solves this and which peptide and all this kind of stuff. And then I dropped in and I asked them, I said, if you take this $20,000 stem cell treatment before getting the terrain ready to be in a healing state, do you get the same outcome as if when you do have that ideal state, which is what I was suggesting I went through. I first got healthy, then I started biohacking myself. There's like, well, absolutely true. You know, if you're putting a solution into a body that isn't ready to heal, you're not really going to get much benefit out of it. So it's very important to first go through this healing journey, get to your best through the easy habits, then start working on stuff like stem cells, etc. So EMF, we talked about that. It's called the Flex Pulse, which is and they have different sizes. I just use this one because I like it for my hand. I literally put it in a glove and just wear it. And then there's a Therasage we mentioned earlier, which I'll type again in case you missed it earlier. Therasage makes a great product. The ones I mentioned are home solutions. Turkey, to answer your question, they are home solutions. So Therasage is designed for your home. This is designed for your home. It's a simple, this is it. It's these two pads and this. You know, I sometimes drive around with it on my hand. It's very easy. And the PAMF pad, they have one that's designed for your chair. There's one that's a mat, and Therasage is designed for home. What the range of effectiveness? So this, I wouldn't say that it's less effective than a full mat. It's just that it's isolated. So you can only deal with this much space of your body, right? So this is designed to fix a problem. So it's lower cost, which is why somebody would buy this. You're buying a smaller device as opposed to a full mat. But this is designed to target a specific area, which is, and it's also convenient, meaning that you can travel with this, right? You can move around with this. I drive my car while this thing is running. So you don't need to be in a specific location. The effect is that it improves cellular health. Your cells literally repair. Your DNA damage repairs. You reverse aging is what it does, right? In a big way, you mitigate the EMF pollution that is destroying your body and your cells. So that's kind of what's going on. So we have a few minutes left. Just make sure that there aren't any other questions left before we close this up. And I want to thank you, everybody, for joining us. This was a lot of fun for me. I enjoy working with people and helping people and supporting you. Anyone that hasn't been tested here, I know that Julius dropped the link. If you're looking for people, again, were messaging me saying, is there going to be an offer, a discount or whatever? So we created one for you. Julius can drop that in here again so that you have that. So if you are needing a discount on a test, it's there. If you're needing coaching or direction, or if you already have a test and you need support, email me, send a message to Julius while we have a few minutes left, and he'll support you. So the first step, would you recommend doing the DNA test to get health in line? Yeah, so for me, so I just literally had this discussion over the weekend with a functional health doctor who uses our test. And what she said she used to do was when she was using genetics, remember genetics is this gene means this, what she used to do was put people through her program. And when people got stuck and she couldn't figure it out, she then used to get a genetic test to figure out what's going on with this person that I can't figure out. She said since she's been using our test, which is system-based and functional, she now starts with it because she now knows exactly what to prescribe for all these women that she deals. She deals with women's hormones issues. So she said now that she's using a more functional test, it's the entry point. People have to start with a test because you just skip all the trial and error, all the one size fits all the advice from everybody, and you do exactly what your body needs on day one, right? So that's kind of where now that we are able to interpret functionally, which didn't exist a few years ago, there was no functional genomics, it was all genetics, right? Now that we have functional genomics, it's your starting point. It's the first thing you do, and you only need to do it once. And once you have it, the other benefit of it being the first thing, you keep going back to it to ask questions because you have this genetic map. So as you stumble and like, oh, this supplement didn't work. Wait a second, let me see my genes for metabolizing that supplement. And you can keep going back to it as a tool. So there's my email. Julius just dropped it in there for you. How do your elder parents with this? So my mother, when we first started working, she's grandma biohacker now. She's in her 70s now, mid 70s. So she was in her early 70s when we started this. She was bedridden with arthritis. She couldn't get out of bed. And I discovered through my genetics what I got from her. So I started to see glimpses of insulin issues and starch metabolic pathway issues. And I started to realize that maybe she doesn't have a disease called arthritis. Any itis means inflammation. That's what itis means. So what's causing the inflammation? I started to ask the right questions. And for my mother, I started to ask the right questions. What is this itis? Why does she have this thing that she didn't have earlier in her life? And I started to understand again the metabolic pathways that I had, she also had. I got them from her, and she's really not good at metabolizing starches and sugars. Well, I also understood that her mitochondrial function wasn't the best when I looked at things genetically. And so when your mitochondrial function isn't the best, if you don't demand youth from your body by continuing to push it, it won't give it to you. And that's what she did. She just believed she was old, and she got old. And where is she at now? She has a personal trainer and goes to the gym, right? She drives my niece around everywhere because she just likes doing it. She goes shopping on her own. She's fully independent and living the way she did in her 40s. And she's in her late 70s now. Because again, using the genes and interpreting it in her context. The thing that Deborah said earlier, how do I use this for my new problem and my new problem, my new problem? Your genes drive everything. So let's go use that to figure out, why did you get this problem? And my own mom is proof in the pudding. She went from bedridden with arthritis, didn't function, to going to the gym and training and driving herself around and doing her own shopping and carrying bags, because we figured out why, the root cause, and she's healthy now. Okay, so Linda's waiting. Linda, by the time you get your results back, the webinar series might actually be live. It's going live sometime in May, so that's going to be a great experience for you. And anyone here that has a test from the past, you're welcome to join the webinar series. The webinar series is going to be us walking through the genome to help you understand it better, to get more value out of it. So you're going to really like that. So we have 2 minutes left here. Want to respect your time. Any other thoughts before we're Claudio just joined in. Yes, everyone will get a replay, Claudio. We're going to send a replay out to everyone, so you'll get that likely tomorrow. So any other thoughts? And I think we'll keep that discount code open for a few days just to make sure you get a chance to look or watch the video first. Would love a link. So the book is full of recommendations. To just answer MC's question, would love a link with all your recommendations. The book, The DNA Way, has every recommendation for myself, which will help you think about yourself. It's all in there. Recommend, yeah, it's in there. There's a lot of products recommended. No, thank you guys, everyone, for attending. And we had our DNA Day party. It was fun. And you can take this, you'll have the recording for future if you need to share it or use it or send it to other people to help them learn also. This is a tool for you, if you want to go back and understand. Again, I know it's not easy to just absorb it all, but keep in mind the purpose of tonight was to show you the structure, right? The structure, not the tactics, not the things that I did, like truly buy this, eat this, but the structure, because then you can do it yourself, which was the promise. Here's how I did it in a way. I'm gonna tell it to you in a way where you can then take away and do it yourself. So get the replay. You may have to go back and listen again, but it's not difficult. Let me just tell you that. It's only difficult if you don't start, and that's step one, is just doing it. And once you do it, I'm going to tell you a little hack, and maybe we close with this because it's super important. The reason we don't do things is because it's hard. First of all, we're lazy. Humans by nature are lazy, which is a very important thing that makes us do things. Laziness is actually what makes us get things done because we're trying to avoid work. But we're also lazy because when we have to do things that are beneficial to us, it usually means giving up pleasure. The reason you do the things that are wrong is because they're pleasurable. Typically, they're easy and they're pleasurable. So it's hard to give them up because not only is it not easy anymore, but you lost your pleasure. Keep in mind that dopamine, the chemical that allows you to feel pleasure, also allows you to feel reward, and you don't need both. Both of these things give you satisfaction. So Once you start to learn to get satisfaction from reward, it becomes very easy to eliminate the problems that are pleasure because you're still satisfied. It's not a switch that you flip, but this is what I now do. I get more benefit satisfaction wise and dopamine wise from reward than I do from pleasure. I actually enjoy saying no to things because of the sense of reward it gives me, because my brain is now going in that direction, the reward direction. There's a gentleman named Joe Polish that runs something called Genius Network, and something he said opened my eyes to this. I understood it biologically, but in practice, he said that there's no food that tastes as good as the way I feel. And he rubbed his stomach as he was saying that because it's flat and he has a six pack, right? Meaning that the sense of reward he gets from going to the gym and saying no to bad foods that he knows he's not supposed to eat and making sure to take his supplements in time feels better than the way he used to feel just eating whatever he wants, right? So just know that it's hard to start, but it's very easy to continue. And there's momentum where the more you do it, the easier it gets, and to the point where it's not easy, that is your satisfaction. Reward is your satisfaction. So with that, thank you everybody for joining. Again, you'll get the replay if you need it. The discount codes are there for everybody that was asking for those. And we'll see you again. Everyone that has their reports, you'll eventually get access to the webinar series that we're getting. Thank you again, and wish you a good evening, guys.